Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. We have today with us Niti Ranjan, who has agreed to talk to us related to managing mental health and academics in the online virtual education mode. So I'll briefly introduce Niti, who has gracefully accepted to be with us today. Niti Ranjan has been working as a mental health professional in the field of 4+ years. She has a master's degree in counseling psychology with a specialization in adult and family therapy. She works with a variety of concerns ranging from stress, mental health distress like depression or anxiety, self image issues, sexuality, and gender related concerns, including relationship issues and violence, trauma, or significant loss. Apart from that, she has also worked with various nonprofits in the field of education and mental health as well as child protection against abuse. She is also currently affiliated with an organization aimed at providing comprehensive sexuality education to all adults and children in an age-appropriate manner. Niti, we are very happy to have you today with us and look forward to gaining lots of practical wisdom from you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. She has already given an introduction. So I just wanted to talk briefly about, like she said, I work in the field of mental health and I work with, people who have whatever concerns that basically impacts their mental health. So today I thought we would talk a little bit about, what mental health is and what mental health can look like in context of, you guys like who have just sort of joined college and are still sort of, trying to figure out how their life is going to look like. So that's what the focus of today's, session is. And I hope that it's informative and you guys take something back from the session today. And before starting the session, like I would like to say like one or two things. Like one is that at any point, so today's session is more about managing mental health in the present context, which means that we'll be talking a little bit about COVID and all of that. But it's still a very a basic sort of things that you can do in everyday life. Sometimes the distress or the stress that you guys face can be beyond the scope of one individual कि मैं खुद से सब कुछ नहीं handle कर सकता या कर सकती, and this is going beyond what I usually am used to. So I would encourage that in those cases it's a good idea to reach out to people around you or to reach out to a professional. So that is not the scope that we are covering today. It's more about being prepared for the different stresses that life can actually sort of throw at you. So that's the gist of today's session. Let me just share my screen. Just a second. Okay. Can everyone see this?
No, ma'am, not. Yes, now it is
Yes,
visible.
ma'am.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
Now it is visible.
thank you so much. Yeah. All right. So, yeah. All right. So let's before starting with what we can do to sort of improve our mental health. Let's talk a little bit about mental health. So how today's session is going to be like, we'll talk briefly about mental health. We'll talk briefly about impact that current situation can have, like what are the causes which can sort of impact your mental health, what stress looks like, what are its manifestation, what sort of impact it has on ourself, and then what we can do to sort of manage the stress and whatever the impact on mental health is. So that is the rough sort of the structure. Another thing I wanted to clarify is English okay, or do you want like a mix of English and Hindi?
Some students might not understand Hindi.
A mix.
Mix. It will be better if mix.
Mix, ma'am, better.
better.
All right, ठीक है.
Yes,
So
ma'am. Mix is better.
yeah, sure. I'll do a mix of both. And so I'll also reserve like a half an hour towards the end for questions. So if there's any point that you feel like you're not very sure about, or that there are more questions that you have about the session, we can cover that then. All right. So let's start with mental health. Okay, what is mental health? So there's this definition that WHO, like your World Health Organization, has given. which says that mental health is a state of well-being in which individual realizes his or her own abilities, right? So whatever I feel like I'm capable of, whatever my abilities are, that is being realized to its full extent, can cope with the normal stresses of life. Right now, everyone will have some or the other problems in their life. We don't have a life जहाँ पे कोई problem नहीं हो रहा है, हम एकदम बिना किसी दिक्कत के जी रहे हैं, right? छोटा मोटा problems आ सकता है, but a person can cope with those things, right? So, can everyone see the according to WHO वाला slide, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
yes, ma'am.
Great. Huh. So as I was saying that individual realizes his or her abilities, can cope with normal stresses of life. So whatever problems that you get in your life, they're able to cope with that. Can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. So we are not just talking about, absence of anything or like absence of problems. Basically, mental health की जब हम definition की बात करते हैं तो हम ये बात करते हैं कि with stress or with any problem, how an individual is coping and how they are functioning in their life, that determines your mental health. Because if we focus कि नहीं कुछ भी कोई problem नहीं है, वो आपका mental health है, then we are basically excluding most of the population of the earth. Because ऐसा नहीं है कि किसी को कोई problem नहीं होगी. So what we are doing is we are looking at a very holistic picture when we talk about mental health. So I made a chotu sa meme for that. Like mental health is not just about absence of mental illness. It also means presence of emotional, psychological, and social well-being. Because even with mental illness, you can still have a fulfilling life. You can still have a very productive, meaningful life. So, क्या हम उसमें बोलेंगे कि you don't have a good mental health? No, you can have a mental health. So it's more about emotional, psychological, and social well-being than anything else. So now when I say, okay, what is this emotional, psychological, and social well-being? So these are the different components that we talk about in mental health. And this we basically talk about so that, हम देख सके कि क्या चीजें हैं जो फिलहाल हमारे mental health में impact हो रही हैं. And which are the areas that we want to work on. It's not just about कि मेरे को नींद नहीं आ रही है या मुझे भूख नहीं लग रही है. It can also be about I don't feel like socializing with people, or I don't feel like there is any point to what I'm doing. So all of these are also markers of whether your mental health is being impacted or not. So इसीलिए these components of mental health are also very important, right? So first one being emotional well-being. So if it includes happiness, interest in life, and satisfaction. So if I'm able to feel happy, okay, if I'm able to have some sort of interest in my life and what I'm doing, what other people are doing, and if I feel some sort of satisfaction. Now, satisfaction can also mean not overall, right? Because there will be times when we don't feel as satisfied with ourselves or with our life. But same, I do an activity that I really like, right? And for example, it could be, say, reading a book. And I feel satisfied in that activity, in that hobby, right? That is also important for emotional well-being. So, हम कह सकते हैं, okay, my emotional health or my emotional, aspect is still okay, going okay, right? Now, psychological well-being. Now, it includes liking most parts of one's own personality. Now, again, with personality, why did I say most parts? Because सबको खुद से कुछ ना कुछ complaints हो सकती है, right? It's not necessary that we like 100% of ourselves, right? We all might have things like, oh, I want to improve on this. Oh, I'm very lazy. I want to improve on that. I get very nervous in social situations. I want to improve on that. But overall, we have like an okay sort of a relationship with ourselves that I am okay with who I am, mota mota. Being good at managing the responsibilities of daily life, which means that whatever my schedule is, okay, I have to get up, I have to study, I have to go to classes, I have to meet my friends, I have to, eat a little bit. All of this is what comprises of daily life. But if I'm not able to do all of that, or if I'm struggling to complete all these tasks, that means that there is something going on, जिसकी वजह से my mental health is getting impacted. Having good relationships with others. We as a society, as a species, are very social animals, right? That's how we have evolved, and that's what is a very important aspect of our life. So it's important that those relationships are also being maintained. If someone starts feeling, that I want to pull away from people and I no longer feel any interest in anyone, right? That means that that person started isolating, which means that the psychological well-being is getting impacted for whatever reasons. And being satisfied with one's life, again, that satisfaction does not always have to be like fully कि मैं बहुत खुश हूँ अपनी लाइफ से, but like whatever I am doing a little bit, उसमें अगर मुझे satisfaction नहीं आ रहा है, which means that there is something in my life right now which needs to be looked at. Then social well-being, like I said, right? Like we are a social species. So how we relate to others and how we are sort of being in a society is also important for our mental health. And studies have actually shown that isolation, which all of us had to do in that last 2 years, can do a number on our mental health. So I think that social well-being right now has become even more important to be considered than any other time. So what does social well-being mean? It refers to positive functioning and involves having something to contribute to society, feeling part of a community. Now, when we talk about social well-being, we are not just talking about interpersonal relationships, right? It also is about who am I as a member of this society. For example, right now, अगर आप सब students हैं, you are still contributing to the society, because the expectation is that once you study, you will become a part of the society and start actively contributing in whatever ways, in terms of services, in terms of providing some sort of contribution, some sort of expertise that other people don't have. So you are still contributing to society, right? And that is something that I am okay with in a way. Like I understand that I'm part of the society and I want to contribute to that society. That is also a part of social well-being, right? Feeling part of a community. Now that community can be anything. It can be your family, it can be your neighborhood, it can be even your class, right? It can be a group of friends. Being part of community means that do I feel like I belong somewhere? And that somewhere can be in any of these aspects. And understanding of the way society works. I understand what my role is, I understand what other people's role is. I also understand the very implicit do's and don'ts, right? हम जब एक society में रहते हैं, so हम उस हर society का अपना rule होता है. And वो कहीं लिखे नहीं होते. These are not rules that are written or that we are taught कि like, oh, these are the rules of society. These are things that we pick up when we live in that society. So do I have an understanding of those unsaid rules? Do I understand what my role in the society is? So when I'm aware of all of this, that means that my social well-being is going okay. For example, suppose we go, like for example, right now, the understanding of society is all of us have to stand at 6 feet distance, right? Or we have to put a mask, or that we have to make cues, right? And in all of that, if I start, spitting somewhere, which means that okay, I not understand how the rules and regulations are. One is that I don't do it because I don't know it, and one is like I don't care wala. So I'm not talking about the I don't care wala. It is about, do I understand how society works and what are the rules and regulations of society? That will come under social well-being. So when we talk about mental health, we have to sort of focus on all three. And if there are anything going on, like thoda sa bhi chota mota in any of the three, then we can say, okay, my mental health is getting impacted and maybe that's what I need to focus on. Now, we have spoken about mental health and what are the different components of mental health. Now let's talk about you guys and what are some of the, stressors or some of the things that can sort of impact your mental health, right? So for example, academic concerns is one. Right, like because 12th तक क्या होता था, there was a very like a syllabus that I already knew. I had a lot of time to prepare, and it was very less compared to what it becomes in college. So those academic concerns can now change, right? Then concerns related to time management and concentration. My classes have become different, right? I might have to sit in like a 2-hour or a 3-hour lecture. I have less time to prepare. I also have to look at notes. I have to look at, next day's, study material. So there's a lot more adjustment happening in terms of how much time do I have to do what I need to do. And am I able to concentrate for all the things that I need my time for? Then pressures and expectations, right? Since that is something that you do have even in, your boards in your 12th. But these expectations are different because now it's considered that, now that you're in college, you have to look at your career, you have to look at how you want to be as an adult. Now you come under the population of adults. So that pressure and expectation can also be a little stressful at times, right? Worrying about the future. Now after this, do I have to do masters, do I have to do a job, do I have to contribute to my house, what do I have to do? So that future can feel very uncertain, and that can be very worrying for a lot of people, right? And taking care of yourself and family, because now when I'm an adult, I'm expected to be a lot more mature and contribute to my family. For example, maybe till school, your parents were the ones who are coming, taking care of you, like chalo kha lo, ye kar lo, you have to go to tuition. So now you have to manage a lot more by yourself. So you have to take care of yourself, and then there could be expectations from the family that now, yeah, you start sort of contributing to us as well. And relationships, this is also the age where relationships of all kinds, be it friendships, be it romantic relationships, they are an important part of your life, and how they are going impacts our mental health a lot. So if there is any conflict happening in those relationships, that can add to whatever stress you have in your life. So these are some of the stressors, or some of the things that can impact your mental health. And what has happened in COVID has sort of added more baggage to those stressors, right? And navigating a college life in COVID times is not easy. There are a lot more additional difficulties that can happen. For example, technology failures. I was looking, like someone had said that, oh, there is a lag that's happening in the session right now, right? And that is something that is out of our hands. Like, I can't do much about it, the person can't do much about it, because that is a technological problem. So that can happen, which can add to just the stress, because now because I'm now stressed about, I have to make it to class on time. I also have to have like a proper internet the whole time the class is on, even when I have to submit things. So that can be a little difficult to navigate. Like, lack of routine. I am not physically getting up and going to college, right? I don't have like a demarcated time for everything. So that can also lead to a lot of difficulty of routine, because now I'm pretty much more laid back. I'm still on my bed when I'm in my online classes. So there's like very very easy to fall back asleep once I put myself on mute and I'm like, okay, I'm done. So that lack of routine can become really difficult over time, right? Isolation from peers. As I said, right, this is an age where friends make up a lot of not just our support, but also about how we understand life and how we navigate life. And to be away from those peers, and to not have those shared experiences, can also be very difficult. It's very isolating to just be in your room day in day out and just look at online classes and talk to people about that. So that can also become a little difficult. Then consistently inconsistent societal and learning landscape. I mean, we are in a time which is, I mean, nobody could have predicted, and it's been a very, you learn as you go sort of a thing, right? That every few weeks there are new guidelines, every few weeks there are new sort of rules and regulations about, okay, how am I supposed to be in college, how am I supposed to be outside. So there is no certainty. It's very inconsistent with the way things are folding. Sometimes it's like, oh, maybe my classes will open in October, then it's like, no, again there's a new variant, now my classes will open in January. So a lot of that inconsistency can be really difficult, because there is no time, there's no preparedness, there is no, it's also, it's like, I'm a little scared to hope, because I'm not sure what's going to happen with that hope, which is why this also heightened sense of helplessness, right? A lot of problems right now in my life is from an outside source, right? They are not some things that I can control. So there can be a lot of helplessness involved in this scenario. I can't help what's happening outside. I can't help what's happening in, my family or in my immediate circle. So that can really, impact a lot on someone's mental health. And of course, this is not an exhaustive list. I have put like the major ones that people have brought up as concerns. Of course, there can be n number of different things that can sort of weigh on person's life. So they are also, so we have to look at our life and figure out, okay, these are the things that sort of weigh on my mental health. So these are the things that sort of, make me stressful. Now, all of these things, when they impact our mental health, so we don't say, okay, this is impacting my mental health. It's like, okay, I'm stressed out, right? All of these things like give me a lot of stress. So I'll be using stress as the sort of the response when my mental health gets impacted. So what is stress, right? It's a normal physiological response to events that upset or threaten balance, right? When my mental health is upset, or it's like it's not in balance, when I'm being impacted by things, that is a response that my body gives, which is stress, right? And and when I feel stress, right, my body has three responses, which is fight, flight, or freeze. Now, fight means that when I'm feeling stressed out, my body goes into this mode that, okay, I have to tackle this, I have to fight this, right? Flight means that my body feels like, okay, I have to run away from this stress, or I have to get away from this because it is becoming too much. And when both fight and flight sort of fail, or my body feels like, okay, the situation is way too big to be, tackled, so I can't fight, and the situation is way too close and dangerous that I can't run away, which means I can't flight, then body goes into freeze mode, which is like I can't do anything. And why freeze mode is there is so that body, because it knows कि अब भाग नहीं सकते, लड़ नहीं सकते, so let's try to minimize the damage. Let's not feel anything. Let's become very frozen so that, whatever the stress is, let's just get it over with. That's the attitude. Now these responses are very primitive, right? हम ये सोच के नहीं करते हैं ये responses. These are very like a split second response that our body gives. So why we are talking about this is a lot of times when we feel very overwhelmed, okay, like there is too much stress going on and मेरे को समझ नहीं आ रहा है क्या करें, we get a search कि भाड़ में जाओ, like मुझे कुछ नहीं करना है, like let's just leave everything and let's just go and play like video game for 2 hours because anyway everything is doomed. That is your flight reaction. That's your body saying this is too much to actually deal with, let's just go away, right? Sometimes when we become very overwhelmed, when we become very stressed out, we start feeling angry, right? And we start lashing out at people, right? A lot of it could be also fight response, because I don't know what to do with this response and I'm just sort of lashing out at whoever I can see. So this is why it's important to know, okay, what are these responses? Am I engaging in any of this? Sometimes what happens is when I'm feeling very stressed out, my mind goes blank, right? I can't do something. I know I should get up and physically pick up a book and read, but I can't get myself to get up. I can't get myself to do anything, which means that my body is now in a freeze response. So this is how a lot of times our body manifests these responses. And why it's important to know this is so that I know that these are the responses and I need to get out of them. Because while they might be very immediately relieving at times, a long run में वो उतना काम नहीं करते हैं, right? And the stress keeps adding up. Now, is stress also good or bad? Like, so we have talked about, how body responds and how it's a very normal physiological response to any event, which might feel a little too much for us. But actually, stress, when we look at stress in general, it's not all bad, right? For example, if I have no stress in life, ठीक है, मुझे कोई किसी चीज का कुछ भी नहीं है, then it's very difficult to find any motivation to do anything, right? मुझे क्या जरूरत है? So there is this model that says that there is something called an optimum level of stress, which is important for us to be motivated and actually do stuff in life, which is called like the good stress. If we go past that stress, then we come in the stress zone where we start feeling anxiety, where we start feeling panic, where we start feeling angry, we might lash out at people. So that is the high stress. So basically arousal level means that, how much stress I might be feeling or how much my body is feeling all the different manifestations of stress. So when it is very low, I feel very low, laid back, I feel very inactive. So मैं कुछ नहीं करूँगी. I am very immobile in a way, right? Then as the arousal level goes, our performance also goes up. So there is a point where there's a medium arousal level, which is like the medium, like the good amount of stress, where my performance is at its peak, which is like the best optimum performance, right? But if I surpass that, if my arousal becomes even more, which means that my stress starts building up more, again my performance starts going down. So then I come in the stress zone where again I become very useless, and I start, and then all the stress, the fight, flight, freeze, and all those responses might come in. So the idea isn't to not have stress at all, right? The idea is to maintain in that level where the stress is enough that I can function, or the stress serves as a motivation to function. Now, these are different types of stress. Okay. First is acute stress. Now, acute stress is the most common form as a result of recent or anticipated stressors. Now, acute stress can be both positive and negative. Mani ki anything that gives me stress, like the immediate response that I have to anything, that's your acute stress. Now, it can be the good stress also, where my performance is optimum, or it can be thoda sa bad also, where I'm now going in stress zone. But it's the basically any stress which is a response to any recent stressor. Stressor means anything that gives me stress. Now, episodic stress, it's the acute stress that occurs frequently. वो episode की तरह बार बार हो रहा है, right? This is a kind of stress that continuously pops up, sometimes in a pattern. It is accompanied by worry and angst about things that are happening to you or around you. For example, if I have a fear of पब्लिक स्पीकिंग, राइट, मुझे लोगों के सामने बात करने में दिक्कत आती है, और इफ आई हैव अ फियर ऑफ इवैल्यूएशन, सो क्या होगा, एवरी टाइम देयर इज अ वाइवा आई स्टार्ट फीलिंग वेरी स्ट्रेस्ड. आई ऑलरेडी नो दैट दिस इज अ स्ट्रेसफुल सिचुएशन, सो दैट वुड बी एपिसोडिक स्ट्रेस बिकॉज इट कीप्स हैपनिंग फ्रीक्वेंटली फॉर अ पर्टिकुलर स्ट्रेसर, राइट? And because I already know that this is something that really stresses me out, or when I know that I'm going to get stressed, I am already in a way prolonging my stress, because मुझे already worried आना शुरू हो जाएगा, because I know that viva is coming, right? So I start becoming much more, angsty, much more worried पहले से ही. Chronic stress can be thought of as never ending stress that relentlessly wears away at you. If you don't see an end in sight, if you're facing something that has no way out, then you're likely to begin suffering from chronic stress. So episodic mein kya hai? There is a pattern, but there are still windows where you're not feeling that stressed, where you're okay. Chronic stress it's a never ending stress. When someone keeps feeling stressed throughout, that is chronic stress. और chronic stress में क्या होता है, because you keep feeling that way all the time, you start feeling after a point that there is no end in sight. I will never have a time where I don't feel stressed, or that what is the point of doing all of this because I keep feeling stressed. You start feeling like मैं कुछ भी करूंगा या करूंगी मुझसे handle नहीं होगा. So if you start feeling that hopelessness, or if you start feeling like what's the point of this, whatever I do it's not gonna really make a difference, that means that there is now the stress has become chronic, right? And chronic stress can be really difficult to get out of on your own, because your body starts giving up a little bit, right? Because the body starts feeling like maine sab try kiya, nothing is working, so like what's the point? So it's a good idea to sort of ask for outside help when the stress starts feeling chronic. Now, we have spoken about what stress can look like. We have spoken about what the types of different stress can be. Let's also look at how stress manifests in body. How do I know that what I'm feeling might be stress? So stress manifestation also has different components, right? Physically, how my body feels; emotionally, what my emotions are like; cognitive, how my brain is functioning; and behavioral, how am I behaving with other people? मेरा व्यवहार कैसा है? So physically, how it can look like is if I start feeling very fatigued, right? मुझे बहुत ज़्यादा थकान होने लगी है. If I start feeling digestive issues, so a lot of time with stress, people report that they start feeling very acidic, right? They have a hard time keeping food down, right? Some people also report there is a burning sensation in my digestive tract. So all of this could be because of stress, right? Trouble sleeping. I am kept up all night. I become very restless. I am not able to have like a proper deep 5-6 hour sleeps. I get very tukdo mein sleep. Then that could be also because of stress. Difficulty breathing. This happens a lot when the stress is very so episodic stress may especially this can happen when I start feeling a lot more anxious, when I start feeling thoda panicky, then my breathing becomes a lot more difficult. Muscle pain or tension, a lot of times we spoke about like flight and freeze. In that there is a lot of tension that happens in the muscles because my body is preparing me to either flee or to like freeze. So a lot of times that tension remains in the body, and over time if the stress is very repeated, that starts like my muscles will start paining, or I will start feeling very tension. It's very hard for me to relax my body. So that can be one of another manifestation, right? Headaches, because there's so much stress happening to my head that sometimes it can also lead to a headache. Now I want to say one thing, that a lot of this can also be related to like physical ailments, but a lot of this can also be related to stress. So when people say that, oh, this is very psychosomatic, like ये तुम्हारे दिमाग में चल रहा है, actually में तुम्हें कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, your body is fine, which means that the symptoms that you're exhibiting could be because of stress. Now, emotionally, how do I feel? There could be, signs of depression. When we say depression, it means that there's a what we were talking about in the components of mental well-being, right? I start feeling like there's no point to any of this. I start feeling very hopeless. I start feeling like I don't enjoy things that I used to enjoy before. So those are some things that can happen when you're feeling stressed and you're feeling depressed, right? There's a lot of sadness happening. Also, irritability. A lot of times we don't realize that irritation is a manifestation of stress, because when my body is feeling overwhelmed or my mind is feeling overwhelmed, I start lashing out at people because मुझे handle नहीं हो रहा है कुछ भी, right? So anything that someone says feels like अरे अभी चुप हो जाओ यार, right? That sort of a feeling I start getting. So I start becoming irritable to people. Right, a lot of restlessness also can happen. जहाँ मुझे बहुत बेचैनी हो रही, समझ में नहीं आ रहा, like I can't sit still, I can't do anything, my body is constantly overwhelmed. And a lot of time this restlessness can happen. For example, exams से 2 दिन पहले, I have exams in 2 days, there is so much that I have to cover that I start feeling very overwhelmed कि if I read this, I'm missing out on 4 other subjects. If I read that, I'm missing out on this. So I'm so restless that I can't even concentrate on the one thing that I'm trying to concentrate. So that is how the restlessness can look like, right? And anxiety. Anxiety would have things like, everything feels like terrible. I have problems breathing. My body is feeling very on edge. I start getting very, negative thoughts. So all of that can happen in anxiety. Then cognitively, what happens is if there are thoughts of failure. Now, see, every one of us have thoda sa fear of failure, right? But when these thoughts become very repetitive and these thoughts become like I can't escape them, that means that I am now stressed. Because if I'm reading something, there can be one part which is wondering, yaar, what if I'm not able to finish it on time? Which is like a general worry that everyone has. But if when I'm trying to study and my mind keeps telling me that, oh, you're going to fail, you're not going to be able to finish on time, which means that now this is becoming much more difficult. And this is now my body is way too stressed to have like a very objective or a rational, manifestation in a way. Worthlessness. A lot of times when the stress is too high, and this especially happens in chronic stress, you start feeling very worthless. कि हाँ मैं तो हुई failure, I am a bad person, I am a useless person, of course I can't do anything, of course I'm gonna fail. So that sort of thoughts start coming in. Inability to focus, because there is so much happening in my brain, there is so much fear of failure, there's so much restlessness that of course it's very difficult to then be able to focus. So that also starts happening. Then how all of this also impacts our behavior. So behaviorally, what starts happening is sometimes emotional outbursts, like I start crying randomly out of nowhere, right? Which means that, okay, maybe I'm having some sort of stress, right? Decrease social activity. I start isolating myself from people and from things that I really liked. Eating too much or too little, right? Both can be a manifestation of stress. Decrease in physical activity. For example, if I really liked sort of say walking a little bit, going out to meet my friends, now it feels like my bed is my only friend. I don't want to get up from my bed. I don't want to move at all. So a lot of times that gets mistaken as laziness, but a lot of times that's a symptom of stress because your mind is really, really tired having all of this happening over and over, right? So which is why the physical activity gets decreased. So these are the manifestations of stress. So a lot of times I might not recognize that I'm feeling stressed, but if I can see any of this happening, which means that, okay, my mental health isn't to the optimum level that it needs to be, and I might be struggling. So it's a good idea to then sort of focus on in that area that, okay, what's happening, and then figure out how I want to proceed. Now, we looked at, okay, how stress can manifest in your body, in your mind, in your behavior, right? Now, let's talk specifically about what sort of academic stress you guys can face, right? What are some of the things that can happen, right? Academic stress can look like, excessive worry about upcoming exams. Matlab, one is a legit ki haan, theek hai, abhi exams are, I need to be a little scared, otherwise I won't study, right? Again, good stress. So, thoda bahut worry zaruri hai, so that I take it seriously. But if my worry is so much that I'm having a hard time actually studying, which means that now I'm feeling that bad level of stress, right? Difficulty in adjusting to the workload. I am constantly feeling overwhelmed. I'm constantly feeling like there's so much to do and so little time. So I can't adjust to that workload, which means that now my academic stress is becoming a little more, right? Fear of being evaluated. What if the other person realizes I don't know anything? What if they know that I don't belong in this college? What if people find out that I'm a dumbass? What if they find out that, oh, I can't do much? So every point I'm fearing that people will judge me or people will evaluate me, right? That means that now I'm feeling a lot more stressed because it's like my worry of that evaluation is very disproportionate. Not everyone is out to evaluate me all the time. But when you're feeling very stressed, that's what starts happening in our brain, right? Then there is fear of failure. What if I can't, answer in the class? What if I can't make notes on time? What if I can't do well in exams? So I am fearing failure at every point in life. So that can also be a way academic stress can manifest, right? Blanking out during or before exams. I've studied everything, can't remember anything, right? Or when I'm trying to write exams, I'm like, okay, I'm coming up with a blank. That's your brain panicking, right? Difficulty in concentration. Now, these are some of the academic stresses, right, that a person can sort of face, right? A lot of times what happens is this is very academic related stresses, but it can get a lot more worse or it can become a lot more intense if I have other stresses going on in life. For example, if I have financial worries going on, right? So for example, I know that my parents have sacrificed a lot to send me to this college. So then there could be an added pressure that I have to do well, which means that my fear of failure then will become even more, that disproportionately it will go up. For example, adjustment issues. I'm anyway having a hard time adjusting in life, in home, with online bits, which means that then my stress of adjusting to workload will become more. Struggles with social relationships. If I'm feeling isolated, if I'm feeling like there's no one out there to help me, then this stress becomes a lot more because then I don't have anybody to share. I start feeling like I'm all alone in this stress. And if I start feeling that I'm all alone in this stress, then it can feel a lot bigger, right? Inability to maintain a routine. Because I'm not able to maintain a routine, then it means that I am having a hard time again adjusting. Then I start worrying about everything that's going wrong. So all of these other stressors in my life can add to the fact that I start feeling a lot more academically stressed than I would have otherwise. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. There can be a lot of different stressors that are happening. For example, especially in COVID, if the health of my family is taken a hit and I have to also, take care of them, that means I have less time to sort of spend on my academics. So that can become a stress. So there are a lot of different ways that, my stress levels can be impacted, and it's not an exhaustive list. Now, why are we talking so much about stress, right? Because stress ka manifestation we spoke about, right? But stress can also have like long-term effects on our body and our mind. So stress can lead to chronic worry. I am stressed out full time, and which means that now, for example, it can start, say I start being stressed out about that fear of failure, right? I am always scared that, oh, I'll what if I fail? What if I fail in this class? What if I fail in front of people? What if I fail in Viva? What if I fail in exams? But then what starts happening is that stress starts seeping into other life, where I start becoming worried about everything. Now I start worrying about, oh, what if I don't go to the stationery shop and get my pens? What if that is the reason I don't do well in exams? So I start stressing about one thing, but over time, because it becomes chronic, I start worrying about everything, which means that it then becomes a cycle of worry, stress, right? Then pessimism. Pessimism means that I am always imagining the worst possible scenario. I'm always imagining the worst of people, right? That starts happening because what happens is with stress, my mind is always looking at things that can go wrong, right? Because that is how it has become now, which means that I am always assuming the worst. कि of course the खराब ही होगा, of course ये इंसान तो खराब ही है, of course this will not work out in my favor. So we start becoming a lot more pessimist, and when we start becoming a lot more pessimist, then it can affect the satisfaction that we have in life. It can affect the relationships that we have in life. It can also affect the worry bit, because now I'm always imagining the worst, which means that my worry will also keep increasing. Then negative self-talk. So because I'm so stressed about, fear of, say, for example, fear of failure, or I am I'm always stressed about, what if someone is evaluating me? So over time, what starts becoming is that we start getting frustrated with ourselves also, right? Nobody wants to be in chronic stress all the time. Nobody wants to experience these symptoms all the time. So a lot of times what then happens is that frustration gets directed inwards, and I start talking to myself in a really bad way, right? Ki, of course you are such a useless person, of course you're feeling stressed, like what, you can't even do this simple task, what a failure. So we start becoming a lot more critical of ourselves, and because what happens, and which means that I start doing very negative self talk to myself. Like for example, I'm really stressed, and that is why I can't have a proper routine where I'm sleeping for 8 hours and getting up and going to class. So then what my negative self talk becomes, like, of course you can't do this, you're such a useless person, तेरे को सोना भी नहीं आता. That's like the simplest thing that you can do, but you can't even do that. So that's a type of conversation we start having with ourselves, which can really impact in long run, because now then we have become, then that hopelessness and that depression starts setting in because of that negative self talk. Yeah. Unrealistic expectations, right? When I don't acknowledge my stress, or when I become really frustrated with my stress, I have unrealistic expectations that you have to, for example, I have been so stressed that I'm not even be able to study for, say, 2 hours. But now I have expectations like, of course you have to study for 8 hours, you have to do all this bit for yourself, which is not a very realistic expectation. But that also I'm having a hard time figuring out. This is actually not a very realistic expectation that I have. So I get a lot of clients who have been, in a place of distress for a really long time. They have this, they lose that sense of, okay, what is realistic and what is not realistic. So they will give me, these big, lists of goals. All of this I have to do. And sometimes I have to look at it, I have to say, even a person who does not have the sort of problem that you have, even they won't be able to do this whole list. That unrealistic their expectations get. Because the internal dialogue is, I am such a failure that only you can't do it. And I have to tell them, no, nobody is capable of doing what all you want yourself to do. So expectations become really unrealistic, right? And then all or nothing attitude. So then sometimes what also starts happening is people start believing that if I have to do all of this, if I don't do all of this, that means I can't do anything and I'm a failure. There is no scope left for mediation us time pe, right? And which is why this is also very connected to your unrealistic expectations also. Okay, I have this full list, I have to be able to do the full list. If I can't do the full list, then I'm a failure, I can't do anything, and this life is meaningless. So वो इतना फटाफट पूरा spiral होने लगता है. Somatic issues. Prolonged stress has, there are numerous research studies that have shown that prolonged stress leads to heart problems, leads to digestive problems, leads to hair loss. A lot of your body starts giving up if there is a lot of stress. So which is why there are a lot of somatic issues that starts happening in your body. Somatic means body related issues will start happening. So we have painted a very grim picture of what stress can do, why stress happens, what leads to stress, what are the components of mental health that gets impacted by that stress. So now let's look at how we can deal with that stress. Now in this dealing with stress, there are two things that I have looked at. One is very academic oriented, that if I have this much study load, I have to employ these methods to sort of deal with that study load. The other is more about chronic stress, right? More about where academic stress is now seeped into my personality, where academic stress is now seeped into my day-to-day functioning. So we look at both of them, right? But when we talk about how to deal with stress, the first thing that we have to remember is that in college, stress is inevitable, right? There is no way that nobody will feel stressed, right? What we spoke about right in the beginning, that it's not that you have no stress happening in life. It's that how you cope with the stress that's important. So we have to accept that college hai to stress to aayega hi aayega. But what we have to do is it doesn't have to dominate your life, right? It doesn't have to become this overarching thing that takes up all of my life, right? What we can do is do your best to understand what kind of stress you're feeling. It's important that I understand, okay, what is the stress I'm feeling? Is it acute? If it's acute, it's fine, right? Like when the event will pass, my stress will also pass. If it's episodic, which means that, okay, I have to start preparing because I know it will keep coming back at points. So I need to maybe look at why the stress keeps coming back. What about the situation is making me feel so stressed? If it's chronic, then I have to look at, okay, what are the factors that are contributing to that stress? And what is the type of thoughts now I'm getting because of that chronic stress, right? So it's important to understand the kind of stress you're feeling, what's causing it, and how you can respond to it productively, right? With every sort of stress, it's not that I can just push my way through. Sometimes I have to understand it first. Sometimes I have to sort of give it a little space to tell me, okay, why am I feeling this stress, right? What is happening in the situation that is making me feel this stress? And which is why only then I'll be able to respond to it more productively, right? Because after all, you can't control the stressors in your life, but you can choose how you respond to them, right? Which is very true, especially in COVID. There are so many stressors which is happening outside of our control. I can't expect that I won't feel stressed, right? I have to navigate this online system now. So I can't expect that I can just go with it, right? There will have some stresses, but I can still choose to how I respond to it. Now, second thing that also we have to remember is that by removing distress, you can create a vacuum in your life, which you will unconsciously fill with either the same distress that you previously pushed aside, or from some other negative source of pressure. So we don't want to completely get rid of stress, because what also starts happening is, for now, I have completely gotten rid of stress. Now I'm like khali baiti hu. But when I'm as a khali baiti, I'm like, oh wait, what if something goes wrong? What if something else becomes tiring? So then what happens is, then that stress starts trickling back in. So what we want to do is we want to work effectively to produce stress, a good stress that we talked about, so that I can have optimum performance. So you don't have to worry about defaulting to negative feelings and drained energy when you find yourself with some free time. A lot of times what happens is, especially in chronic stress, people have a hard time having some free time. उनको बहुत डर लगने लगता है फ्री टाइम से. They have a hard time just sitting with themselves. Because क्या होता है when it's that type of stress, जैसे ही आप खाली बैठते हो ना, your mind starts getting plagued by these negative thoughts. It starts getting plagued by these very negative sort of a self-talk. So people feel really scared to sit like that, and that's when they start like, मुझे let me be occupied the full day. But what's happening is you're not actually working on your distress. You're not actually removing that distress from your life. You are just keeping yourself busy, which is very different from being able to relax or being able to work at things. So इसीलिए it's important that I don't completely try to remove all stress, because वो हो भी नहीं पाता है. it's important to try and keep it to a good stress level. So these are two things that we have to sort of keep in mind whenever we are talking about, stress management, be it in online spaces, be it in offline spaces, and especially about COVID, right? Now let's look at a little bit of study tips that we can use when it comes to stress management. So one thing, and this is something that I use very extensively, even when I'm, figuring it out what work I have to do, what sort of assignments I have to complete and stuff like that. So which is like SMART goals. So every time I'm trying to plan some things for myself, I ask myself, is it a SMART goal, right? So it's a short form which says that S is for specific. So whenever I'm planning a goal, it has to be specific. It can't be as a fella hua and khule mein, like, okay, I will study. I should make very specific plans that, okay, for these many hours, I'm going to study this many things, right? It has to be measurable. I can't just be like, oh, I will study for 2 hours, that's it. Or I will study physics, right? I have to make thoda measurable goals so that I also have a sense of the time and how much I still need to go further, right? Third is attainable. So we spoke about, how when we are in a lot of stress, there can be very unrealistic expectations that we have of ourselves. So it's important that whatever goal we make, it is even attainable. If I studied 2 hours yesterday, I can't be expected to study 8 today, right? That's a very non-attainable goal. मुझसे वो होगा ही नहीं पूरा. And because I won't be able to attain that goal, of course, then that whole negative self-talk will start happening, that failure talk will happening, and that just, it's a downhill from there. So when I'm making goals, it also has to be a lot more attainable, right? It also has to be relevant. For example, if I have a class happening tomorrow on, say, linear equations or something, I don't know, right? I'm not very, So if I have a class then, and if I start learning today, if I start studying about something else, that's not really a relevant thing for my larger schedule. So the goal also has to be relevant to your present situation, what you are ultimately trying to achieve. And it also has to be timely. There has to be some amount of, time constraints also involved. So otherwise you will keep procrastinating it a lot. So that's the acronym SMART. And anytime you have to make any plan, right? Be it a scheduling for your everyday, work, or be it a schedule for your, exams. It's a good idea to sort of, do a mental checklist in your mind. Okay, this is a SMART goal. Then time management. So now when we talk about time management, this is something that a lot of people struggle with, especially when there's a lot to do and when you're feeling that there's a very, very, very little time left. So what you can do is we can make like 4 categories, and you can rate all the tasks on 2 scales. One is whether it's an urgent or a not urgent task, whether it's important or not important task. So that way you will get an idea of what all I need to tackle first and what all I can afford to sort of let go of a little bit. So things which are very important and very urgent, which are very crisis situations, that I'll do first. Things which are not urgent, but they're still important, I can set some time aside a little ago, right? Something which is very urgent, but not very important, right? Maybe can I give it to someone else? Can I, tell them that, okay, I can't do this right now. So that way I can manage my time a lot more efficiently. And things which are not urgent and not important, I can always do them whenever I'm taking a break, or when I am, feeling completely chill and relaxed. Okay, now I can do those tasks. So that way I can manage my time a lot more efficiently. Because when we are only looking at urgency, sometimes it can feel like, oh, everything is urgent, I don't know what to do. But we also can look at the importance of it, and then that will help us manage the time more easily. Now, when we talk about this stress management, and especially in the times that we are living today, there are also some things that are much more about perspective, right? Which are also very important to remember when I'm trying to navigate this bit, right? And the first thing is that focus on things that are in your control. Right? Especially when it comes to online learning, when it comes to dealing with COVID, when it comes to dealing with, learning in these times, a lot of things are not in my control. And if I keep stressing about that, it will only add to my helplessness, right? It will only add to my worry. So what I need to do is I need to focus more on things that are in my control. For example, how, like, what the lockdown restrictions are going to be like, not really in my control. But what is in my control is planning for things that if the lockdown doesn't get over, these are the things that I want to do, right? If my, for example, internet not going okay, not really in my control, right? But what is in my control is, do I have backups for it? Do I have friends that I can talk to in case I miss out on class? Or can I get notes from there? So we are trying to focus on things that I can actually control, because that will also give me a sense of direction. Ki, "Acha, okay, I can do stuff." Right? Focus on getting an education instead of getting certain grades. Right? This is very Three Idiots में भी ये बोला गया था, right? That the grades will come in automatically if you take your learning seriously. Because a lot of times we are taught from a very young age that marks is everything. You have to get certain grades, you have to get certain marks. But a lot of times what's also important is that the skills that you're picking up. Because when it comes to working outside your college, you won't have those markers of grades, right? Nobody's going to grade your work. And if I'm very focused on grades, then what starts happening is, a lot of times, and this is a complaint that I get a lot from people who have started working, that they feel very directionless, that they're not sure what they're doing in life. Because if when I am focused on getting grades, I get this sense of accomplishment every time I get a good grade. But when I come to work environment, I'm not getting grades. So where is my sense of accomplishment coming from? So it can become really difficult then to sort of focus on what I'm actually here for, which is learning, which is then later on, putting that learning into action. If your schedule is overwhelming, remember that it isn't permanent, right? Your current classes will end and you will have to build an entirely new schedule in a few short weeks and months. A lot of times, and this is applicable not just to your schedule, but like any stress that you feel, that whenever things feel very overwhelming, right, in that moment, it's always a good idea to tell yourself that this is not permanent. This is a momentary thing. It will pass. Because in that moment, when I'm feeling very overwhelmed, when I'm feeling like everything is going over my head, it can feel like a never ending bit. So you have to tell yourself that this is not permanent. This will pass. I can do something about it. I can change it later. I just have to get through this moment right now, right? So we are taking it much more moment to moment. The uncertainty of the future can be difficult to handle, right? But you aren't alone. It is a very uncertain future, be it about, whether my college will reopen or not, whether I'll get to see my friends or not, what will I do after my college. There's a lot of uncertainty about the future. But what's important to remember is that everyone feels that uncertainty, right? There is nobody who has a very certain future. Even people who are working, say me or other people who are working, even they have uncertainty in their future. That is the speciality of future, that it won't be certain. The only thing certain that we have is the past, because it's already happened. Everything is set in stone, right? So future means uncertainty, but it does not mean that I have to, sort of become really overwhelmed with that uncertainty, right? It's okay if I don't know a little bit of things, because future is also not set in stone. So if I feel like, oh, this is not working for me, I can always change, right? Don't hesitate to reach out to your friends, family, professors, or advisor careers and guidance teams and counselors for help and advice. Routine building is not about doing things perfectly. It's about doing things consistently. Especially, we spoke about how in online, classes and online college, routine can be really difficult to maintain or even to get to in the first place. And a lot of times what we start doing is, if I make a routine for myself, and the first thing, if I miss, my whole routine goes to haywire. I'm like, ab kya hi hoga? But what's important for routine building is not that I do everything perfectly. That if I've said, okay, I'll get up at 7, I have to get up at 7. It's about doing things more consistently. Okay, I didn't get up at 7 today. That's fine. Even if I got up at 8, let's get to the next thing on my routine. It's fine if I messed up with this one. But what's important is I keep doing this consistently. I try getting up every day at 7. Maybe I won't get up at 7 the first 10 days. Maybe I won't get up at 7 the first 15 days. That's okay. That's how routine gets made. That when you keep doing something consistently. So it's important that even if I keep missing the mark on that routine, I still continue to keep building that routine. ठीक है, मैं 8 बजे उठी, मैं 9 बजे उठी, but what's the next thing on my routine? Okay, I have to get to this class, or I have to do this assignment. I move on to the next task. But the point is I keep trying at it every day. Right?
Nita, there's a question in the chat box also.
Just a second. I can't see the chat box. Is it okay if I take it towards the end?
Okay, fine. That would be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So next is also tackling fatigue. Now, a lot of times when we are feeling a lot stress and we are feeling a lot more, overwhelmed by the different study and the things that we have to do, it can become very tiring, right? And what starts happening is, if that state of tiredness doesn't go away, then slowly our productivity starts taking a dip. Slowly our mental health starts taking a dip. I start feeling constantly restless. I am not able to sleep, I'm not able to eat. So that fatigue ko we have to tackle. So what's also important when I'm studying during that time is that I break larger portions into smaller chunks. Because what happens is, if it's a large portion, it feels a lot more overwhelming. It feels like a lot more like I can't do this. So then we start making smart goals to make it into smaller chunks, right? And a lot of these are also very commonsensical things that you already know that you're doing, right? I'm sure a lot of you might be doing a lot of these things already. So it's important to sort of, this is like me saying, okay, like the good job, and like keep doing that lot more, right? For example, mentally summarize information and ask yourself questions about after each chunk. Because again, the focus isn't really grades, but the focus is what I'm picking up from this material, right? Set concrete studying time with enough breaks. Breaks are really, really important. So it's not that I'm only studying, but I also get enough breaks. Now, match difficulty of task to level of alertness. Alternate between different levels of difficulty. For example, if I'm not feeling alert at say 2 a.m. in the night, right? It's difficult then to study something which I feel very complicated to me, because it will take me a longer time to be able to study that. So if I feel the most alert say at 6 p.m. in the evening, then that's the time I tackle the most difficult bits that I know. So I have to also sort of look at that level of alertness in what I'm studying. When distracted, acknowledge the distraction, set it aside, and refocus. Now, it's very natural that if I'm studying for a long time, I will start getting distracted in at times, right? Nobody has razor sharp focus or concentration fully throughout, right? Even in classes, say for example, 2 hours, this is going to take 2 hours. Of course, there's a time where your mind will start wandering. So what's important is that when I notice that I'm getting distracted, I acknowledge the distraction, right? I say to myself that, okay, I see that I'm getting distracted. No big deal. It's a really long lecture. It's natural that I might get distracted. And then I set it aside and then I refocus. Because a lot of times what happens is when we get distracted, we become very punishing to ourselves. Like, yeah, distract ho gaya. What the hell are you doing? Try and focus. And when we put so much pressure on ourselves to focus, my focus becomes about the focus. And then again, I've lost track of what's happening in the class or what's happening in the session. So, which is why the idea isn't to put pressure on myself. Be like, okay, I got distracted. No big deal. Happens to everyone. Let's focus again. And that's it. So I'm acknowledging it. I'm setting it aside. And I'm refocusing. Then, tackling fatigue, mein what all I said, also switching between active tasks and passive tasks. For example, if there are tasks like where I have to solve equations, that's a lot more active task than say where I have to rote learn. So I can keep switching between the two so that it doesn't become too much of, a snooze fest for my brain. So that's how I can switch between the two. Adding more activity to your studying. If I'm sitting on my bed constantly for 7 hours and just studying, there is a very good possibility my brain is going to become really tired and be like, ho gaya mera. So I can get up, I can walk around a little bit. Some people prefer, like throwing ball and like squeezing balls and stuff like that. So you're trying to be a little more dynamic in your study rather than just sitting on one place and getting really, really tired. Yeah. Then reduce snacking. So what happens is eating snacks can reduce your memory power because snacks have a lot of carbs, right? which would make you full and sleepy. So reducing the amount of snacking we are doing, and if we are still insist on snacking, then avoiding the high carb stuff. Like, you can do a lot more, like, dry fruits and stuff like that, and drinking a lot of water. I cannot stress this enough. Half our problems in life would actually decrease if we drink enough water. It's very, very important for the body to recover, to have a lot of water. So when in doubt, just drink water. Feeling fatigue, drink water. Feeling like, okay, now I'm starting feeling sleepy, drink water. So like, water should be the solution of half our problems at this point. Yeah. Now, I spoke a little bit about what happens when distraction comes in, and the what we're talking about, like, acknowledge the distraction and set it aside. Now, that process is actually a part of a larger thing called mindfulness. Now, mindfulness is actually like the most important bit when you talk about mental health, or when you talk about stress management, or when you talk about dealing with any sort of distress. So, mindfulness, what does that mean? Is that mindfulness is a mental state that involves being fully focused on your awareness of the present moment. So, two things. One is fully focused. Second is awareness of the present moment. When I am in the present moment, how much of that moment I'm aware of? Am I aware of where am I sitting? Am I aware of what my brain is doing right now? Am I aware of what all is happening in my environment? So mindfulness talks about being fully focused on that present moment. So how do you practice basically mindfulness? Is that you acknowledge and accept your thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judgment. So for example, when that distraction came, you acknowledge that distraction. Okay, looks like I'm distracted, right? And you don't judge it. You don't judge yourself like, kya kaisa insaan hai, what sort of person are you that you can't even sit for 2 hours. So we're not doing that judgment element. We're just saying, okay, I am distracted because and you're accepting it. It's natural for me to become distracted because 2 hours is a long time to focus. So you're accepting it, but you're not encouraging it. So हम ये नहीं कह रहे हैं कि okay, distraction आ गया, let's be distracted. What we are saying is, okay, distraction has come. It's natural for me to be distracted. Now let's refocus. So we accepted it without judgment. We acknowledged it, and then we went back to the task that we were doing. It's nice to have, it's good practice to practice mindfulness in daily life. So how we can do that is, for example, I am scared of vivas, like I said, right? I am really scared of being evaluated as a face-to-face verbally. So what happens when I practice mindfulness is that when I'm, say, outside the room, right? I'm like, okay, currently I'm feeling really scared, right? I'm acknowledging the thoughts I'm getting. I'm getting the thoughts that, oh, I will fail this. I will not be able to speak, right? And what are the sensations I'm getting? Okay, my body feels really rigid. My breathing is really tough. I'm not able to breathe. I feel like I'm throwing up. So I'm acknowledging all of this, right? And I'm accepting it like, it's okay. It's very natural for me to feel this way. Anybody can feel scared when they have to, speak in front of someone and have to, memorize everything. It's okay if I do this. It's not a big deal, right? So I am being very aware. I'm acknowledging the distress. So I'm giving myself space, right, to understand that this is what's happening, right? I am scared because I know that this viva is important, right? I am scared because I know that I want to score good marks in this viva. That's why I'm scared. And that's a very natural thing to be scared of, right? I want to score well. So when I let myself accept all of this, right? When I let myself feel these different emotions and thoughts, I get to the root of it. I get to the root where I can see that, oh, this is why it's important. This is what I'm trying to do. That I'm trying to get full marks, right? And then I can negotiate with myself. That I can tell myself that, look, if my goal is to get full marks, then if I get anxious right now, that goal is not going to get fulfilled. That anxiety right now is not helping me. So can I do something else? So that way we can negotiate with ourselves. What mindfulness is also doing is it's cutting down on that negative self-talk, right? It is cutting down on that chronic worry. It is cutting down on that pessimism because I am accepting all of this without judgment. So that is how mindfulness can actually have, sort of use in all these different aspects. Now, how can you practice mindfulness in daily life is like, for example, basic tenet of mindfulness is to be fully focused on your awareness of the present moment. So how we, a lot of times, what I also encourage my clients to do the mindfulness is, for example, say for example you're taking a walk, right? Now when you're taking a walk, a lot of times we listen to music, so like you don't have to do that. What we have to do is, when we're taking a walk, we are fully aware of all our senses are present. Okay, what can I hear on my walk, right? Oh, I can hear the highway ka vehicle ka sounds. Oh, I can hear, people talking in like somewhere near my house or something, right? What can I see? Oh, I can see tall buildings, I can see kabutar, I can see the sky, I can see all of this, right? Then I take breaths, and what can I smell? Oh, it's not a great smell, right? I can smell a little bit trees, I can smell someone's dal tadka in their house, I can smell the road ka, gandagi and all of that. The idea being that I'm very present in my present moment, right? I'm not in my la la land of worries or concerns or stuff like that I have to do. Because a lot of times what happens is, for example, I go for a walk, right? I'm listening to music, but मेरे दिमाग में क्या चल रहा है? मुझे घर जाके, I have to study all of this. I have to do 8 assignments. I have to, talk to my friends. I have to study for this and that. So even when I'm on a walk, I'm not really relaxing, right? I'm still stuck in my worry cycle. So mindfulness, mein what we are doing is, when we are focusing on that present moment, I am taking a break from that worry. Now my full focus has been, कितनी मेरे को चिड़िया दिखी, क्या मुझे smell आ रहा है, who all are walking around me. So I have taken a break from that worry. I will go back and I can do that again, but at least मुझे break मिल गया. तो वो जो chronic worry है वो नहीं रहती है, right? What are other ways of doing mindfulness? Deep breathing exercises. So a lot of times it's difficult. Not everyone will get to go for a walk. So what sometimes we do is, we do deep breathing exercises. So you sit in one place, right? You cross your legs, and then you take a deep breath, and then you exhale. And then when you're doing that, you take a stock of your body. Which part of my body is holding the tension, right? Which part of my body is feeling a little more relaxed, right? How am I feeling in that current moment? So that deep breathing exercise helps with that. Also, a lot of times during anxiety and stress, because our breathing gets really shallow, right? We looked at manifestation of stress. So these deep breathing exercises also help with that, right? Acknowledging stress and difficult emotions, like we spoke about this, right? Like when the distraction happens, when there's a fear of evaluation that I'm having before Viva, I'm able to acknowledge that, and then I can get past it. So mindfulness has a lot of different, functions in a lot of different ways. And I have given you like a very gist of what mindfulness is about, but I would really encourage that, a lot, like if you could sort of like, follow up on this, because it can really make a lot of difference in how I handle everyday stressors and everyday concerns that I have in life. Now, we spoke about mindfulness, mean that we have to acknowledge difficult emotions. So that leads us to our next activity, which is called naming and labeling the emotion. Now, stress can be a result of overwhelming number of emotions, right? And because when we are stressed, there are a lot of different emotions that are happening inside, right? We can be anger, irritability, anxiety, hopelessness, helplessness, n number of, right? And in the moment, it can feel very difficult to control these emotions, because emotions are also can become really, really big in that moment, right? In such a case, one, it is important to remember that these feelings are momentary and they will pass. What we spoke about pehle also, especially when we are feeling overwhelmed, it's important to remember that no emotion is going to be constant, right? It does ebb and flow. It does become upar niche, it keeps happening. So it will pass, right? It is also important to identify exactly what are the emotions being experienced, right? So one is, I know that it will pass, and the second is, once I'm able to, name it, or once I'm able to understand what exactly the emotion I'm experiencing is, it is much more easy for me to manage it, right? So the purpose of labeling the emotion is that it makes it more concrete, thus helping to manage it better with further steps. Then I can go back to mindfulness. Another thing is that, a lot of times we are taught that there are good and bad emotions, right? That anger is not a good emotion, or that guilt or shame is not a good emotion. But what we also need to understand that emotions are a tool of communication. If emotions were bad, why would we still have them, right? There has been thousands of years of evolution that has happened, right? But everyone feels anger, everyone feels jealousy, everyone feels shame, right? Everyone feels sadness. So emotion by itself is not a bad thing to have, right? They are tools of communication. That is our mind and our body communicating to us that there is something that is happening in this situation which is making me respond this way. And what's important is that I use that emotion to understand what I feel about the situation, what I need to do about the situation, which is also why we need to start labeling the emotions, right? That makes it more concrete. That makes it much more easier for me to handle. Okay, what do I need to do next? For example, so this is something that I teach a lot even in therapy sessions. For example, guilt is a very, no, sorry, not guilt. Let's go with anger. Okay, anger is a very forceful emotion, right? Anger a lot of time helps us do something. It helps us do an action. For example, there is some person who has a very hard time saying no to their friends, right? They keep saying yes to everything that the friends say, and then that starts building resentment inside them. One day what happens, they get really really angry because it has been building for a really long time, and then they yell at their friends and they say no. So in a way, in that moment, what did anger do? Anger helped them say no, which is otherwise really difficult for that person, right? So if the anger wasn't there, then the resentment would just keep building on and on and on, and then what will happen is sometimes people sort of start directing it inwards. But what anger helped them do is anger helped them get it out. I'm not saying that's a great way to talk to your friends, but anger served a purpose. So when I know that, I can deal with it much better. I can see, okay, I'm getting angry. Why am I getting angry? Because I've not been able to say no for so long, right? Which is why where is my anger is coming from. So then I can work on the fact that I need to say no. Then I don't have to bichara terrorize the anger or be mad at the anger. Ki like, tum kyun aaye? Because now I know why the anger came. So I can work on that cause. So which is why I think emotions are important and emotions are a communicating tool for us. And which is why labeling that emotion is also very important. So I call this periodic table for emotions. So like we have like mota 5 emotions like happy, sad, angry, afraid, and ashamed. And now what the intensity of these feelings are, according to that, we can figure out what we have been feeling, right? And a lot of times when the intensity of feeling is a lot higher is when we are able to sort of, understand what's happening or like that's when we do something. So it's important for us to also remember, okay, what the intensity I'm feeling, which also is an indication of what the situation is like. For example, if I am feeling a little irritated, right, that means the intensity is low. I can manage the situation. There's something about the situation that's bothering me, but that's manageable. But when I'm feeling furious, which means that now situations become way more for me to handle. And accordingly, then I can change my response to the situation. Which is why this table is really good to have an idea of what I feel when I feel it and what is the purpose of that feeling. Yeah. Now, so we looked at different strategies to sort of manage stress, manage distress, manage how we can sort of navigate different things that sort of not work out for us. With all of that, it's also important to take care of self, because stress can lead to a lot of difficulties for self. So these are also other practices that can help in cutting down on your stress. For example, getting enough sleep. Sleep is a very, very, very important component in maintaining our physical and mental health. So I also understand that there are times when there is a deadline for assignment, there's a deadline for some exam where it's difficult to have like 6 to 8 hours of sleep. But what's also important is that then I make a note that, okay, for the next 2-3 days I won't be able to sleep a lot. So then how can I sort of make it up in other ways? So even when I'm not getting enough sleep, I am aware of that and I don't make that a habit, and I can sort of change my routine accordingly, right? Eating balanced meals. A lot of times, a lot of your somatic symptoms can sort of reduce down if you get enough sleep and if you can eat good food. And when I talk about balanced meals, it's also important to add water to it. So water is also very, very important part of your balanced meals, right? Getting regular exercise, it doesn't even have to be like proper exercise where you're going to gym and stuff. It can be something as simple as, do I get my body gets a little movement? And that movement can be just taking a round in your building compound. It can be just, jumping or dancing a little bit inside your room. So anything that basically helps your body to move a little bit so that it doesn't feel as stiff and there's not enough tension in the muscles. Finding time for doing activities you enjoy while studying is very, very important. Taking time out for college is also important. It's also important that we do find some time for doing activities that you enjoy, right? We spoke about the emotional component of well-being, where I should feel happiness and satisfaction. So this becomes an important part of that. Taking regular breaks, especially from news and social media. So one is taking breaks from, whatever the activities you're doing, but another is also taking breaks from news and social media, because current situation where there is so much bad news that keeps happening on news and social media, and our bodies aren't designed to tolerate this much bad news, right? Because we get a lot of empathy overload where we start feeling so much stress that I'm not able to focus on my life and my problems. So it's really important that we take also from those bad news and from stuff like that. Acknowledging one's strengths, right? Self-care isn't always about eating and sleeping. It's also about understanding my own strength, right? All of us have been going through this really tough 2 years, right? So it's important that I acknowledge that I am still doing the best that I can. I am still showing up every day to do things that I feel are important, right? So that is an also very important bit of self-care, and which is also then goes directly against the negative self-talk that I keep having otherwise, right? Finding avenues to express yourself. Now everyone feels stress, right? There are different parts of life that can be a little stressful. So it's also important that I have avenues where I can express that, right? I don't always have to keep it inside. Now those avenues can be writing, painting, dancing, exercising, talking to friends, talking to a therapist, talking to your family, anything. Basically any medium that helps you sort of get things that are inside to the outside is a good idea. Nurturing important relationships. We A lot of time, a lot of stress or distress or any other problem seems a little smaller if you're able to share it with people, right? We talked about social well-being, and we talked about how man is a social animal. So it's important that we maintain and nurture those relationships, because isolation, being cut off from people, can really worsen a lot of matters, right? Depression and isolation are best friends. The more you isolate, the more stronger depression gets. The more you get depressed, the more isolated then you start feeling. So it's a cycle. So it's important that we keep nurturing the important relationships in our life, be it friends, be it romantic partners, be it family, be it classmates, be it teachers, anything. All the relationships that you feel are important should be nurtured, right? Learning to say no. I think this is a very ignored concept in self care, but it's really important to have your own boundaries of what all you can and cannot do, right? So if you feel like, oh, I've been studying for 4 or 5 hours and now I need to take a break. So in a way, and your friends say, oh, let's go to the mall and spend like 3 hours. You can say no, right? Or if you have been doing assignments for 2 3 days and your friend says, hey, can you also do mine? Learn to say no. Drawing boundaries that work for you is also a very, very important part of self-care. Reaching out for professional help, like I said in the beginning, sometimes what can also happen is that the distress might become a lot more than what I can alone handle, or the life circumstances can be such that I by myself I'm not able to make head and tail out of it. So it's a completely valid and a very natural response that you reach out to professional help. You can reach out to therapists, you can reach out to people that you trust, you can reach out to all these different people so that they can help you manage your current life. So all of these parts are important bits of taking care of yourself, and all of these are really, really things that I would encourage you to practice in your everyday life. Yeah. And the most important bit is that you're not alone, right? A lot of people face these struggles. A lot of people face this uncertainty from future. A lot of people are struggling with the current, situation of navigating this online space. So always remember that you're not the only one. You can always reach out to other people. You can always talk to people. You can take their help, right? It's not a problem at all to ask for help. It does not make you weak. It does not make you incompetent. It's even a sign of strength to be able to reach out to other people and say that, oh, you know what, I am struggling. So yeah, with this, I come to the end of my presentation. I think now people had questions. So we can probably start with that.
Yeah, thank you, Niti. Now students can ask any questions, ma'am.
So, should I look at the chat first?
Yeah. I think there are a few questions on the chat.
Right. Okay. So someone has asked, is being introvert also lead to stress as we can't express our thoughts to anyone? So introversion or extroversion by itself does not mean that you will be stressed, but like you said, like that if there is, if you are feeling that you're not able to express yourself, or like you have a hard time saying no, right? What we spoke about in self-care. If you have a hard time saying no, if you have a hard time expressing, your inner feelings, that might become a little difficult, because then you won't be able to express, okay, this is making me feel distressed. So that is a different bit. So even with introversion, you can always look for people that you trust, or you can look for people that you feel would be receptive to your concerns, and you can talk to them. So okay, whenever I watch a movie or web series, I get too much connected to that and I get disturbed. To get rid, I have to watch another movie and it goes on. What does it show? I think in that case, there can be two things. A lot of times, what happens is empathy can become a little bit of a problem. So, what empathy means is that when we are able to put ourselves in someone else's shoes and be able to, experience what they're experiencing, or we can guess what they must be experiencing, that is called empathy. So a lot of times when we are watching shows and stuff like that, which feels like it's very related to our real life, that empathy becomes a lot higher, right? And we can sometimes feel a lot of things that the person might be feeling. So it's in that case, then it becomes really difficult to get ourselves out of that scenario. So I would suggest that being aware of the fact that, okay, this is my empathy talking, right? What we spoke about mindfulness, that okay, this is because I'm feeling very empathetic. Okay, then I start questioning myself, why am I feeling empathetic? What is happening in this serial that is making me feel so moved? And sort of working on that first, right? Because if I just go on to another show, then I'm not really dealing with my feelings, right? I'm just suppressing them, and then it will keep happening over and over. So it's important to remember, why am I feeling empathetic? Yeah. So okay, next is someone else, is being introvert bad? I think I already answered that, but introversion or extroversion by itself is not really anything that is good or bad. It's just a personality trait, right? But if you feel like, because you feel like, okay, I'm not able to share myself, or I'm not able to talk about my concerns, and that is the bit that you focus on, not really the introversion part. Being an introvert is not a problem at all. Okay. Next is, when I do something other than when I do something else other than studies, like movie watching or anything, for the whole time, my mind keeps on reminding me. And when I complete that, my mind says I should have done something else, like upskilling myself or studies, instead of wasting 2-3 hours in that movie. How to tackle that situation? So what I said, right? Self-care, ka there's a very important part that breaks are as important to your life as studying is, right? Because if we don't take those breaks, what will also happen is I won't be able to have the mental capacity I need to study more. So even when I'm taking a break, that is a very important part of my life. And second thing is the whole upskilling bit, right? A lot of times we are told that the only way to live is to be productive, but that's not how we are designed as human beings, right? We need to have some downtime, we need to have some rest time, and that is also an important part of our life. So sort of to change the narrative inside of my head, it's important that I don't have to be productive every waking minute of my life, right? I also have to have some time to relax, which is how I was supposed to exist, which is how our race is supposed to exist, and that's completely okay. So taking away the guilt from wanting to relax is also important for me to be able to relax in that particular time. Yeah. Okay, next is how to avoid being guilty for too long so that we can focus on our future. So then in that case, what's also important is to ask yourself, the mindfulness bit. Now I have an emotion. I know that I'm feeling guilty. So then I start questioning myself, okay, why is this guilt coming, right? What is this guilt trying to communicate to me? If I feel guilty, what is the result I'm getting? And if I don't feel guilty, what is the result I'll get? So when we don't have to avoid feeling guilty. We have to start talking to that guilt. कि अच्छा क्यों हो रहा है, right? What is the problem? Why is this guilt arising? Because when we try to avoid it, we can suppress it for a while, but it will keep coming back. So that is why we lean into it. We talk to it. And that's how we can sort of, and then when we get to the root cause, then we start with the root cause, not really with the guilt. Guilt is just a communicator. It's not the problem, it's the symptom. Okay, how to control the habit of overthinking. Again, overthinking is also a sort of a manifestation of stress, or when we are feeling very anxious, it's a manifestation of that. So when I'm overthinking, it's also important to know, what are the type of thoughts am I overthinking about, right? A lot of times what happens, and this is a lot more generic, but overthinking happens when my brain is feeling very anxious. And when my brain is feeling very anxious, it starts trying to prepare for n number of things, which is when overthinking starts happening. Which means that my brain is feeling like, "Arey, yahan pe kuch gadbad hone wali hai, I need to be prepared," and that's why I'm overthinking. So then I need to start talking to my brain a little bit more that if I don't overthink, what will happen, right? Most probably brain will say everything will go bad if I don't overthink. So, and then I'm like, okay, is that a realistic thing to think? So again, we have to start negotiating about why this is happening, right? This is where mindfulness comes in. If I am overthinking, why am I overthinking? Is this a natural thing to do? What is the purpose of that overthinking, right? And if I don't overthink, what am I scared of will happen? So when we start being a lot more receptive to our thoughts, right? When we start being a lot more receptive to our feelings, it's our mind also starts communicating with us. Our mind also starts telling us, why is this important to me? And am I willing to let go of it? Am I willing to let go of that overthinking? So that is how we have to start dealing with it. How to control daydreaming. So daydreaming is a lot about, so sometimes daydreaming can also mean that I am not really finding my present reality very appealing, right? I am finding this reality in my head a lot more appealing. So in that case, then I have to start asking myself, what about this present, reality is not appealing to me? And what am I trying to escape from in this present reality that I want to daydream? So that is the starting point that we can start talking about it. Yeah. Should we take once time sleep of 8 hours, or we should take sleep in parts? What is good for fresh mind? So it depends on people to people. It is recommended that you do sleep for 8 hours in a day, like one stretch, like raat mein. But a lot of people can also function at 6 hours, and they prefer to have like a half an hour nap in the middle. So there is no one way to do it. Do what works the best for you. So if you feel like you prefer to have like an 8 hour sleep in the night and then go the whole day, then that's great. Go for that. If you feel like I want to have like a 6 7 hour nap in the night and then I want like a half an hour nap anytime in the day, then go for that. And also see how your schedule permits whatever combination you end up at. Uh, does our college have a therapist? I think that is something that Yashoda ma'am can answer.
Yeah, that I'll answer. Yeah, yeah. You go on.
All right. When teacher teach in the class or when I watch a video, why is it instructed by mind that wait till the end, otherwise you may miss something important? What does the situation mean? I also love the fact that now we have started the conversation like, okay, what is my mind telling me and why is it telling me? So I'm really glad that that has started happening. So in that case, right, like the mind is saying that what, wait till the end, otherwise you may miss something important, right? So in a way, your mind is saying that I can't, I have to focus the full time, otherwise I'll miss something important. So then we ask the mind, okay, what if I miss something important? What are you scared of happening if I miss something important? Right? And when we start asking that, then we'll get to the point ki, okay, this is what you were scared of. This is what you're trying to prevent. This is why you're telling me this. So that is how we start, sort of talking to our mind a little bit more. Okay, what's happening? Okay, how to concentrate on one specific task while avoiding thoughts of other tasks. So in that case, a lot of times what happens is when we are very consciously aware of time running out, right? Or when we are very conscious of the fact that I have to do n number of things and I feel overwhelmed by all of this, is when it's hard to focus on one task. That means that my mind is feeling overwhelmed. So it's important that when I'm focusing on one task, right, and I get distracted. So again, mindfulness. I tell myself, okay, I'm getting distracted because maybe I'm overwhelmed by the number of tasks I have to do. That's very natural. It happens to a lot of people. Let me refocus back. So I then just refocus back simply. So when you start doing it over and over, right, when you start acknowledging the distraction and refocusing back, after a point, your mind also starts getting attuned to it. And then your focus sort of remains on that for a longer period of time. So even when I'm not able to focus on other things and I'm having thoughts of other things, if I like um, punish myself, or if I become very critical of myself कि क्या यार तू focus भी नहीं कर पा रहा, you have to think of other tasks, what the hell is this, we'll do that when we want now, then we are not really letting brain breathe. Then now my pressure has become about focusing, right? That's not what I want to do. My focus should be on completing the task, not really focusing on the task. Focus will automatically come if I let my brain be, if I acknowledge that okay, sometimes I can get distracted. So that is what we have to sort of, that's the perspective we have to have. How to take things seriously, I don't get stressed about things leading to poor results, right? So now this is interesting, right? So now in the curve that we had, now instead of the good stress, you are in the initial bit where there is no less stress happening, right? Which is why the performance gets um impacted, right? I'm feeling a lot less motivated to do things. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, what about this situation? So if I'm not taking things seriously, like there is a reason that I'm not taking things seriously. Either I don't care about this, or I don't care about the consequences, or that this thing doesn't feel important to me. So once we get to the root cause of why we are not taking things seriously, then I can start changing it. That okay, this does not feel important to me. What does feel important to me? Can I start from there? Right? If this task feels futile, this feels meaningless, can I start from a task that does feel meaningful to me? So when I start from there, what I'm also doing is that I'm giving my mind a template of what it looks like when I'm actually motivated, or when I'm actually feeling that good stress. And when I give that template to my brain, I can use that and replicate it in other ways also. Yeah. Also, if at any point if in these questions, if someone wants a clarification, just like unmute yourself and ask, okay? How to take things seriously? Oh, sorry, sorry. How to deal when we are compared with others? It's a difficult thing, right? So yeah, so one thing that I do want to say, like all of these concerns that you guys have seen, the first thing that you have to tell yourself is that my concerns are valid, right? None of this makes me a bad human being, none of this makes me a stupid human being, none of this makes me terrible. All of these concerns are very valid to have, and I deserve to have the space to work on this. So that is one thing that all of you should tell yourself. When it comes to being compared with others, it's also important to also understand what about that is also bothering me, right? Because again, we can only control things that are in our hand, right? I can't control what this other person does or what they are like. I can only control my own bit. I can't control if someone else is comparing me to another person. I can only control how I respond to it, right? So if currently, for example, if someone compares me to someone, I feel bad, right? Or if I feel like, oh, that person is much better than me, then I have to start asking myself, why do I feel that way? Do I have all the information about that other person to make the judgment that they are better than me? Right? Because every person is individually unique, right? Every person is different. So, anyway, it's a very unfair thing to compare two people. So, even if I'm being compared, it's not actually about that person, right? It's also about me. So I can go two ways. One, I can get jealous of the other person and I can start putting myself down. B, I can tell myself that, oh, this person is unique, I am unique, it's not fair to compare us. But if in this particular sense this person is doing well, can I admire it? Can I learn from it? Them doing good is not a reflection of me doing bad. That's not how this equation works. Like, we are two separate individuals. So I don't have to compare. I don't have to respond to that comparison that way. Right. So I start changing how I respond to that situation. All right. Sometimes we think we can do better, but didn't get what we have expected. How to overcome from this situation? I think what's also important to remember is that um, that's a very natural part of life, right? We won't always have our expectations fulfilled, right? I might study like very, very, diligently and still not score the type of marks that I thought I would score. But what's also important to remember is that that's a part of life, right? And how and disappointment is also a part of life. If I don't experience disappointment, I will always live in the fear of getting disappointed one day. So it's important to experience all of this. So think of all this as part and parts of a life, of a human nature, that I got disappointed. And that's how you sort of, look at it that way. And that, okay, I got disappointed. This is not how I wanted to work. That's okay. That's a part of life. Now I know what disappointment feels like. I don't have to make this my life. I don't have to let the disappointment overwhelm me. I can move on and do other things that I want to do. So I'm acknowledging the disappointment. I'm acknowledging the importance of the disappointment, but I'm not making that my overarching life. I can still move on and do other things. So that's the perspective we need to have from that. Next is afternoon naps are a habit for me, but is there a need to avoid them? Depends on if your work and your life is getting impacted. If you feel like afternoon naps are not beneficial, then I think you can avoid this. And I feel like after a point when you start working also, afternoon naps might get difficult to achieve. So I would suggest that you start with like sort of using that time to do a lot more sort of activity and sort of staying away from bed and staying away from activities that might feel like nap, like that might lead to nap. For example, if my time to nap is between 3 to 4 p.m. and if I sit on my bed and study in that time, I am going to go to nap, like I'm going to go to sleep. So sort of doing some sort of more dynamic and activity, like a lot more physically arousing activity in that particular time, so to avoid uh, the naps. I'm not sure what the numbers are for. Why is it that naps make me feel much relaxed than 8 hours of sleep? Um, there can be a lot of reasons for it. Again, it depends on what the quality of sleep is like when you're sleeping in the night. And secondly, a lot of times if I have been stressed, say for 6 7 hours in the day, and then I take a nap, that will feel more relaxing. So just have like examine your day and see what purpose is that nap serving and what purpose is that sleep serving, and like what's the quality of that nap or that sleep. That might give you a good idea of why it might be easy to why it's nicer to nap. First step is the hardest step. What could we do to make it easy or less hard? It's not easy. And I think acknowledging the fact that it is hard and I'm still choosing to do it is much important. Like what I talked about routine, like it's the consistency that matters, not perfection. So first step is hard because a lot of times we want to do it perfectly. We want it to look like the way we pictured in our head to look like. But what's important with first step is actually taking that step. So thinking of it's like this is something that I have to do. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be easy, but I just have to do it. Yeah. How to deal with the fear of not making as it is expected in a particular task. Like I said, failure or disappointment is a very, very natural part of life. You won't always succeed. No matter what person you are, you will have some sort of failure in life. And I think this is very interesting because I get clients who have been toppers in their class and toppers in their college, and now when it comes to job, they're plagued by this fear of failing because it's not something that they're very familiar with. And that fear of failure can be something as simple as, what if that I don't do good formatting the PPT, because that's the amount of perfection that they've had all their life. So it's important to sort of get used to that feeling of disappointment and understand that that's important for my growth. And if I'm not able to meet my expectations, that's okay, which means that I need to change my idea of expectation next time. Make smart goals, right? My smart goals are not aligning with my expectations, so we change that there, right? So that's how we can sort of think about it. What should we do to come out from our comfort zones and start moving to fulfill our ambitions? This happens after too long a break, and I feel like staying into that zone. Yeah. So again, the important thing is taking that first step and not really doing something perfectly. So, for example, coming out of that comfort zone means that I don't plan everything perfectly, but I do it more consistently, right? So the first step is supposed to be about taking the step, not about doing it like as I them greatly. Second thing is also acknowledging what that comfort zone was about, right? Comfort zone was about resting, and now I want to get out of that resting place, which means that I will have to step out of that comfort zone. Third thing is also sort of reassuring ourselves that that comfort zone is not going anywhere. If I don't feel like this is the right time for me, I can go back to that comfort zone. But if I stay too long in that comfort zone, getting out would be a lot more difficult. So we have to sort of negotiate with ourselves and see where the resistance is coming from. Where is the resistance to get out of the comfort zone coming from? And what can I do to make it easy for myself to get out of that comfort zone? Think of yourself as a small child who does not want to leave the bed, right? So how do you negotiate with that child? That's how you negotiate with yourself as well. I've separated my conscious self and my subconscious self over time, and I try to have a greater influence of my conscious self on my subconscious to have a greater control over myself. That's been my general plan for general improvement. But I've been told this is me overthinking, being overdramatic. Why I'm personally happy with it. Is that a problem? If it works for you, then I don't think it's a problem. But if a lot needs to be, hello.
Yeah, actually, we lost you.
I got that question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was saying that if people have been complaining that this is you overthinking or this is being dramatic, then I think what you can sort of look at is whether this sort of the thing that you do, is it impacting them? Is it creating problems for them, or is it creating problems for your relationships? And then that is the thing that you can focus on. If it's not creating problems for your relationship, it's not creating problems for you, then I don't think it's a problem. Again, that well-being components of mental health, if your social well-being is fine, if your psychological well-being is fine, if your emotional well-being is fine, then I don't need to change. How to break natural cycle with which restart periodically. I'm not sure what you mean by natural cycle. If you could clarify, that would be
I think you mentioned about episodic stress, right? Which repeats after some time.
right.
Maybe the student is hinting to that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think with episodic stress, like I said, like I know that this event is a stressor, and in that anticipation, I start getting very stressed out. So again, that stress is an indication that there is something with this episode that doesn't work for me. So I start talking to myself in that sense. So for example, the example that I gave, right, that if I have a problem with Viva, that's an episodic stress. It will keep coming after in every semester. So which means that there is something happening in that Viva situation that is making me stressed. So I start looking at that. Okay, maybe talking to an evaluator is my stress point, or that I feel like I will fumble and everything will go wrong, right? Which means that now I know what my cause is, and then I can work on that. So, for example, I can tell myself, look, I am scared because this is important to me, right? Because I want to score good marks. So I understand where my stress is coming from. I'm giving my brain that place where I tell myself, right? And similarly, for example, in that case, suppose I go for the Viva and I tell the examiner, look, I'm nervous. Can you give me 2 minutes? I know the answer because I know exactly what my stress is about and where is it coming from. So I can accordingly make those changes, or I can make those accommodations for myself. So again, stress in itself can also give us data. We are not trying to completely get rid of stress. What we are trying to do is we are trying to understand where the stress is coming from, right? What type of stress it is, and what do I need to sort of do to accommodate that stress, right? And to change that stress into something that I can work with, rather than it becoming something that completely makes me helpless and overwhelmed. We have 5 more minutes left. So I think whatever questions, okay, I think I'm towards the end of the questions. Great. Is getting stressed accelerates us towards our goal? So like I said, right, there's two types of stress. There's good stress and there's bad stress. So if you're in that good stress category, then your performance will be optimum because that will give you motivation to actually work. But if that surpasses that amount of stress and it becomes a lot higher, then it starts impacting your functioning. So for every person, that amount of stress can differ. So only you can figure out whether this is my good stress or my bad stress. So if it's in good stress, then yes, it will be easier for you to achieve your goal. When I make PPT, my OCD triggers so hard it actually makes me avoid researching more on the actual subject. I would say that this is a little bit out of scope of, like presentation, because again, OCD is like a proper diagnosed disorder, and different people have different triggers, which can lead to a lot of, overthinking or compulsive actions. So if you feel like I would suggest that a professional help would be a much better platform to sort of explore this, because I'm not sure what your triggers would be, or I'm not sure what leads to what sort of thinking and action. So I won't be able to give you like a answer for this. Okay, I have a problem of getting zoned out for a split minute even when I'm interested in that work. What can I do to overcome this? Again, distraction is a very natural part of your brain. No brain can be completely concentrated at something all the time, right? Even when I'm reading things that I really like, I still get distracted sometimes. So what's important is, again, acknowledging the distraction, setting it aside, and then refocusing. That's all you have to do. Yeah. All right. I think we are done with the questions. I think, Yashoda ma'am, there was one question about the therapist that I think you can.
Matlab,
Yeah.
right now, unfortunately, we don't have. So that's why actively I've been organizing some sessions because personally in my life also I felt how unprepared I was. So I don't want that to happen to my students. Anyway, but in fact, today I was also a student of yours, listening to your lecture and got to know a lot. And personally, I think I really like the fact that you you taught us to work in cooperation with our emotions rather than resisting them or denying them or, flying from them. So I think, in this whole, so I always wonder about spirituality and being functional at the same time. And, you know, emotions does, non-emotions does not mean spirituality. And there's a whole lot of things that is going on, but let's focus on being a functional human being first. And then we can, so absolutely, I mean, totally loved your session, Neeti. And
Thank you so much.
you can also see from the students' response. And I will also share the students the Google form that we have created, you have created for the feedback. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us, and especially with students. And I'm sure that it will go a long way in making them, more self-aware human beings, and teaching them the balance between productivity and maintaining some space for happiness in their lives. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Neeti. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you, Neeti. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely interacting with everyone.
Thank you so much once again. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.